Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have amongst us Swati Nathani, co-founder and CBO Team Pumpkin. Hello. Hi, ma'am. Can we have you? Thank you so much for joining us. We have amongst us Anita Nair, ex-COO Patanjali. Hi, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us here. I would request Mukesh Goria, Chief Marketing Officer, Modi Naturals. Join me on the dais. So can we give them a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? So we have so many marketing professionals here. They're sharing their experience, and they are from diverse backgrounds. So I think we had a lot of key takeaways from this session today. Thank you so much. We request you to please take over.
Good evening, everyone. I know we are the second last session of the day, and I think all of you have had a long day with a long list of learnings and notes and whatnot. But here I am welcoming you to the rom-com of sessions. I know we are talking about a lot of brand love. We are talking about building brand love and how to create experiences that drive unwavering customer loyalty. And therefore, this session is going to be extremely warm, extremely full of insights, because the two panelists sitting right next to me have, I don't think I need to introduce them. I think I've seen both of them waving to every single person in the room. And Ms. Nair, of course, has been mentioned in the panel where she wasn't even a part of. So
What was the topic of discussion?
Yes, absolutely. We can have one panel discussion on Ms. Nair herself.
Don't take them seriously, guys, please.
But starting away, I think the first question I really want to pose to both Mr. Ghuraiya and Ms. Nair is, how do you define brand love in an environment where all the brands are constantly seeking ROAS and ROIs and so many tangible, cold-hearted stats? There are few brands, however, and even we receive briefs that, this campaign we want to generate some brand love, and they're not necessarily Valentine's Day campaigns, they're otherwise campaigns as well. So we want to understand from both of you, what is your perspective on what is brand love and how can brands drive them really? Ms. Nair, if you would like to go first.
So good evening, everybody. Firstly, I've just quit Patanjali. So I'm ex-Patanjali. So I don't want to take the credit, earlier of Acharya Balkrishnan because I wasn't even there. But it's good to know that a company that you worked for really, lives up to what its vision is. Coming back to brand love, to me, it's like being in love, right? It's almost like loving a person, when you are, and that person just gets replaced by a brand in the lives of the consumers. So there is a huge amount of emotional connect that you have with the person that you love, right? And, you like what that person does, you like what that person displays, right? There is a lot of positive attitude that you have with that person. You will stand up to that person even if that person is wrong, but you will always stand by that person just because you believe a lot in that person, right? And so these 4-5 things, are very similar to what you would do with a brand, right? You will always have that very, very deep emotional connect with that brand because that brand has built stuff over a period of time and that brand resonates with you. You can identify yourself with that brand, you become advocates of that brand for the simple reason that you like what that brand does. Similarly, like, when you're in love, you become an advocate of that person and you will, even without being rational, you will protect that person always, It's the same thing with brands. At times with no rationale, even if that brand is doing something wrong, you'll stand up to that brand, right? just because the brand identifies itself with you. So these 5-6 parameters actually lead, and trust also. Trust is one very, very important thing. I mean, if your boyfriend or girlfriend is kind of, double dating you, then there's a big problem, right? There's a trust issue there. But with brands, again, it's very, very similar because you have that trust because that person adds so much value to your life, right? So, very much so, you just replace that person that you love with the brand that you love with, are in love with. And all these elements, whether they are soft or whether they are hard, always will resonate that brand love. So to me, that actually is brand love, you know. So you think positively about that brand. Even if the brand is doing something wrong, you will get up and, you know, kind of make all possible elements to say that nahi ye galat nahi hai, you know. No, but you know, defend that brand to a large extent. And we've got many examples. We've got examples of Maggie, for example, when they went through that whole thing. To me, the biggest example of brand love is Cadbury's, if you ask me. Yeah. Over, I think they celebrated some 200 years or some a week back or so. And then Cadbury's went through that phase, you know, when post which they had taken Amitabh Bachchan, you know, to bring in that credibility and trust factor. So the most loved brand, if you ask me, you know, for this thing is Cadbury's. I'm madly in love with that brand. Because from childhood, you know, where it used to cost, I think, when I was young, and you know, that was many moons back, right? Cadbury's 2 rupees or something, that small little bar, you know, one could make do with. And we used to have, it used to be wrapped in a foil earlier. I don't know if any one of you would have seen those. And you know, we used to take out that wrapper and put it in our notebooks and put our hands like this, and that wrapper would become really smooth and you know, shiny. So I have those childhood memories of Cadbury's as a brand, and even today, I don't pick up any other chocolate except for Cadbury's, in spite of what they did. So these are all the elements which to me are equal to brand love.
No, of course. Very, very beautiful examples, ma'am. And Maggie and Cadbury's were 2 examples that even, they were on my mind as you were speaking about of how forgiving we become to the brands that we love. I remember that I was working with Big Bazaar, obviously again many moons back, and Kishore ji used to say that, you know, with other MNCs, customers are ready to sue. But with Big Bazaar, the brand love was so much that they would actually write letters and express, you know, please ye theek kar lijiye, kind of a thing. And that's how the brand love gets generated. Would like to understand from you, Mukesh, your perspective of what is brand love and how can brands enable it for their consumers.
Yeah, so 100% agree with Anita. And as you said, I'm still warm-hearted and still believe in love. So I still believe in brand love. I'm old school. Yes. Yeah, I'm old school that way. But yeah, as rightly said, it's like defining love. वो कहते हैं ना कि इश्क या प्यार को मतलब शब्दों में कैसे बता सकते हैं. So let me try my best to define what is a brand love. Also, let me don the hat of a marketeer. To me, brand love in the sense of marketing is a concept where it transcends the basic metrics of a customer satisfaction and loyalty. So it just goes a notch higher. And that's where the brand love converts that consumer into an active evangelist and a repeat buyer. Yes. He becomes the brand ambassador of the brand, just like what Anita is doing for Cadbury's right now. Yeah. Right? She's not getting paid for it, right? She's just advocating about that. So I think that's where the space, that's the concept when once a consumer or you develop that brand love, your consumer is not just your consumer who's buying your product, but he's also evangelizing, he's advocating, he's the active brand ambassador. And that's a very interesting space to be, because that's where you have built a very deep emotional connection with the brand, which then makes you do multiple things. And as they say that love is blind, now this consumer who's in brand love would have a higher patience and would be more forgiving. Yeah. Again, coming back to Anita's example of maybe Maggie or whatever. These are the brands that gone through the tough times. There were controversies about Maggie, there were controversies about Cadbury's, but because they have achieved brand love, those consumers are forgiving. Yeah. They pass that phase and they're again back on the track, and they're still, that brand love continues to be there. So those are the 2 important metrics which is very, very extremely difficult to attain for a brand, and everyone would every brand would love to be in that space to have that second chance with that consumer. So I think those are a couple of, I mean, defining that ways to my mind is what a brand love truly stand for. In terms of why would a brand seek a brand love, it's because that advertising can only lead you to certain path.
Yes.
But in this world where consumer is bombarded with choices, there's too many choices. So just a functional benefit is not enough for that differentiation. You need that emotional differentiation. And that emotional differentiation, if it's coming directly from a consumer as a freeway, that consumer feedback or that consumer advocacy is the biggest currency or is the biggest asset for any brand to have on its side. So I think that really works for a brand who can build a brand love, but it's not easy to reach that space.
No, of course. I mean, it's definitely not easy, and great insights, Mukesh. And we dive into the next question, where I think while we all talk about how to create brand love and we'll do this campaign and we'll do this activation, I think at the core of it lies the fact that we have to understand the consumers a lot. I mean, for example, when we as an agency get a brief of creating brand love, if it is a teenage brand, for example, we were working with Bingo and the campaign called Acha Alu, a young Z campaign where young people could relate. But when we are working with a client like Prega News, dealing with a very different set of audience, then there are campaigns like She Can Carry Both, or campaigns which resonate with a working professional or mothers and so forth can be have been derived. So I think from this perspective, I want to ask you, Ms. Nair, in terms of how do you think you can understand the consumer more, and what role does this understanding of consumer play in creating brand love? Because you have been a part of a brand that has created so much frenzy in this space, right? I remember at one point in time, my parents were like, Patanjali, try karke dekho. They were, everyone, in our homes was a brand ambassador. So how did you create that, and what was the journey of understanding the consumer there?
So without taking the example of Patanjali, because everybody knows, and their journey has been very, very different. See, talking about understanding the consumer, and I think the panel previously also mentioned a lot about you got to know your customer best, right? If you don't know your customer, then, I mean, you don't know anything, because what are brands there for, right? You're all chasing that one customer, because finally conversions into sales is what is important for any business, right? But it's honestly, if you ask me, in today's day and age, it's very tough. It's very tough to understand your consumer preferences. Yeah, for the simple reason, I think the consumers become very, very demanding. And the reason for that is that he's spoiled for choices today. And it is very tough to figure out a new brand, that has brand love in the minds or in the hearts of the consumers. You will always find brand love for brands which have been there over a period of time. And why does that happen? Because the brands have to do a lot of work, right, to be where they are, or to be loved the way they are. Yeah, a new brand coming into your life, the swiftness with which it comes into your life, if it doesn't resonate with the customer, it's as swift as the exit is. So it's very similar in those parlances. But today's consumer preferences are very, very important for any brand to make some inroads into the life of that consumer. So earlier we used to, define consumer as SEC, ABC, male, female, age 25 plus, residing in metros. That's done and dated. I mean, nobody even looks at that, because today the psychographic study or the purchase behaviors of those consumers, or the extent of personalization that a consumer wants. Today we as brands are talking to that one person, because no two people are similar. So you have to understand, the preferences that the consumer has, and thankfully today with technology and with data, there is a lot of stuff that you can do in terms of understanding that consumer. So if you've not understood your consumer, his requirements, the short fuse that the consumers have today, nobody waits for a second today before complaining for anything, right? I mean, the minute you're not heard, or as a consumer you don't get what you want from a brand, you are up and about. It's like the road rage in Delhi, right? You are up and about and saying, let me just, press that little button and send out a message to, to whoever is at the end of the brand's end. So I think very, very important in terms of if you want to build brand love, please understand your consumers' preferences. Certainly they are tough, but if you do not crack those tough nuts, then you as a brand, I think, just need to wind up and go back home and don't think about, any sales or any customer love that is there.
No, absolutely. I think understanding of your consumer, and like you said, that one customer you have to target, and no two customers are same, and that's the kind of world we live into, and which makes it even more important for us to understand the consumers. But I think my next question is posed to Mr. Ghuraiya again, where I want to ask that while we have all understood that it's so much important to create brand love and understanding your consumer and so forth, at the heart of it lies the consumer experience, whether it is offline experience when they're walking into a store or a kiosk, or they're talking to a salesperson, or it is online where they're just going through your website as an experience, or your social media content and your performance marketing ads and so forth. How do you think experiences are relevant in creating brand love, and how do you think brands can make these experiences better?
So, see, clearly in today's era where the product and services are getting increasingly commoditized, it's only the experience which is the differentiator, right? It's very easy in today's times to copy what we have learned and grown on 4Ps. It's product, pricing, promotion, right? Everyone can copy that. You don't have an additional advantage over that. It's only the experience which becomes the core differentiator there. And this experience is whatever brand is able to create. There's a famous saying in human parlance that people will forget what you say or what you did, but they will remember how you make them feel. I think that stays true for brand Excel. They might forget your advertising, because there will be new advertising coming on the blog every now and then. But if you are actually getting them some experience, if you are making them part of your consumer journey, and that experience could be pre-purchase, post-purchase, or during the purchase, there could be multiple level of experiences that could be achieved. If you have made them part of your consumer experience, I think that person is going to stay and have that increased sense of brand love for your brand. And that's where the experience becomes very important. A couple of brands, which comes instantly top of mind is, let's say, Apple. Apple is a fantastic, brilliant example of a perfect consumer experience. Right from the creation of, if you talk about the physical store, the layout of the store, how your product interaction is happening, the knowledgeable staff, how you interact with the packaging or the product. All the touch points have been so neatly integrated and created very cohesively. You can identify that it's the experience. I can very well visualize that. If I ask you that maybe tomorrow, if Apple has to create a pair of sneakers, we all can visualize that maybe that sneaker would have certain kind of these attributes, right? Because that's so much inbuilt in our memory, and that's the differentiation. That's because we have experienced that culture or the way Apple operates, that's how they're able to build that brand love. Nike, again, a very fantastic example how they're maybe doing that offline versus online. So while they're building their communities on the online space, it's not just specific to those websites or the forums. They're actually making those people run and organize those community events, and they are cultivating that culture of active living. They're not just selling their product, but they're asking the consumer to participate in this active living as a culture. And that's where the culture and the community building is happening, which generates an extremely good experience. However, there's also one additional point which I would like to make here, and because I come from an FMCG background, and Anita would agree with me that we, as an FMCG company, we have certain limitations, right? Because honestly, what we call post-purchase or pre-purchase, honestly, we don't have that luxury to get our consumers there. The consumers walk into a retail outlet, I do not own that outlet. At the same time, if they go to Amazon or any third-party website to buy my product, I don't control much in terms of the user experience there. So how does a FMCG company can stay relevant or create that kind of experience? So one part is clearly the packaging and the product itself, but there I believe fundamentally is where the storytelling or the promise that you communicate through your advertising and communication, that advertising, that piece of advertising, that piece of communication can still create that experience because people are buying into the promise that you have shown. And they're just part of that, it's like a regular grocery purchase. It's every month, people are not evaluating again and again. They're picking my product, going back home because they have sense of belief that whatever promise I've developed, they are reliving that promise again and again. And they're only feeling that, okay, maybe if I'm using Lux as a soap, maybe it's making me beautiful somewhere. Yeah. Or if I am applying for, let's say, some Colgate, it's making my teeth better. I have bought into that promise. That experience is not created tangibly anywhere. It's only the experience which is created in the head. So I think the journey is a little difficult for a typical FMCG player, but that experience can also be a piece of communication and advertising.
No, and that's why marketers like all of us here are to create that perception in the minds of consumers that make people fall in love with our brands. So very, very well put, Mukesh. I think from here, I would want to move on to a very, very pertinent question for all of you, I think. The fact is that from some time, this brand love as a term is just all over the place, and all the brands are trying to do something about it. And in that process, customers are going through a lot, you know, and therefore the authenticity of every single brand is getting questioned. So people may not perceive what you're doing for them as experiences, a creation of brand love and so forth. They may sometimes label it as tactics, gimmicks. They may not take you as seriously for that, right? So Ms. Naya, how do you think we can, brands can establish their authenticity while providing experiences that they're planning to provide to their brands?
So there are a lot of parameters, that go into strategizing this, and a lot of that is what Mukesh has also mentioned. And if you look at brands like Apple, for example, or a Nike, or Titan, for example, in the Indian context, or even Amul for that example, yeah, Maruti, Mahindras, Tatas, all these brands, what have they done for themselves really? First and foremost, if you pick up, the question of authenticity, then I think what is important as a strategy is that your messaging, again, and it helps us in the FMCG sector more than it helps in any other sector. The authenticity is driven through the fact that the messaging that the brand is having is actually similar across, so irrespective of the platform you are in, whether you're on television, whether you are on print, whether you're on social media, YouTube, Insta, wherever you are, I think that messaging becomes extremely, extremely important, and it's the consistency with which that messaging goes out, because that helps the consumer not getting confused with various messages from a brand that come through. Then you spoke about customer experience. Obviously, yes. Which brand would not want to give a good customer experience? That leads to a lot of authenticity that gets driven. Transparency. Brands need to be transparent in terms of telling what they want to do. Whether they're doing something right, not doing something right. Storytelling is yet another one. The way the brand projects itself, in the minds of the consumer. Because stories are something, when you talk about love, stories go hand in hand, yeah? So there, I think that becomes important. Creating communities. For example, in the FMCG sector, if your advertising message is the only one that you're depending on, I think storytelling as well as creating communities and allowing brands to talk amongst the customers, to talk about that brand amongst themselves, that also has a lot of role to play. Advocacy, that's the way they become advocates, of your brand. So there are many of these factors which actually will, in terms of strategies, help, brands in terms of authenticity. But mind you, the only caution here is that they vary from category to category. So it's not necessary that what works for an automobile brand will work for an FMCG, will work for services, will work for BFSI. So they are very, very different. The way you actually, get into understanding what category you are working in and who's your consumer. I think those two
Just one thing, which is the founders wrote a sorry mail to everyone, and it was just coming very, very dil se. And that just stayed with me, And I think a lot of times you just don't know what will click with the consumers in terms of brand love, but that means that all the touch points you really need to control on and plan towards that, something will just click if you're just being authentic yourself, right?
And it works other way around also. I was reading a post on LinkedIn yesterday. It was posted against Nykaa, by the way. Yeah, by one of the smaller Ayurveda brands.
Yes, I also
and there was a
read it.
long post that
Bye
she
Nykaa.
wrote. And actually, when you read that, you really felt that, platforms like Nykaa, for example, no offense meant if there's anybody from Nykaa here, but I'm just referring to that story. I mean, that one LinkedIn post would have done so much damage to Nykaa. So I think it's very important while you look at brand love, I think we are forgetting about brand hate also. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think my next question to Mr. Guraya is sort of inevitable, because in the back room we were discussing that how can a panel happen without the mention of the word AI. So I think my next question to Mukesh is about that, there were times when creating experiences were very simple. You could get the data, like you said, all your SEC data and all of that. You had limited options to experiment with. But now so much of technology, data, AI, so much of, I'm sorry, this is the last question. We'll just quickly wrap it up. How do you think brands can create great engagement and innovation opportunities for the consumers?
So yes, I mean, technology, AI, multiple tools, app has definitely changed the consumer behavior to a certain extent. Yes, maybe they have raised the bar. It's maybe more difficult to, because the journeys are not so linear. Maybe in the earlier times, maybe we can say that it was more easy to create that brand love or brand experience. But in today's generative AI or all the technology intervention, the expectations of the consumer are also gone a little higher. But honestly, let's not get lost in the buzzword. A consumer still remains the consumer. Maybe as a human, his maybe adoption of the technology has never changed. But in order to engage a consumer, you need not to necessarily have that technological intervention. So while, I mean, with all said and done, and these tools are immensely extremely important to make our marketers' life easy, but I still vouch for the fact that making that innovation, sometimes what happens is that we confuse the innovation with invention. Now, innovation is not about having a deliberate or definite digital intervention. The innovation could be as simple as maybe changing the packaging of the product to make it more consumer friendly. The innovation could be just maybe changing the consumer retail experience better, which may or may not require digital intervention. Sometimes, yes, there are a lot of brands are using technology to change that. Netflix is a beautiful example how they are using the recommendation engine to use the technology. But if I have to make this bottle opening little easy, I would not deliberately try to make it a technological intervention. Maybe I'll just make this cap a little loose, or I'll have maybe more mechanical intervention, or maybe I'll have changed the shape of the bottle. So sometimes we feel that because we are marketeers and we like to ride on the trends, we try to solve every puzzle of the game by using the latest toy which is available in the market, which usually right now these days is AI or technology. So I believe that we should not confuse invention with innovation. Innovation is actually doing pretty much the same thing, generating the same consumer love, because fundamentally the consumer is same. He's still expecting that engagement. He's still expecting that value add, which could be delivered to him in a most simpler way. And sometimes we over intellectualize and we complicate things. And consumer honestly do not buy things which they do not understand. So we should not play by our playbook, but we should wear their shoes and think from their perspective. So it's not that difficult. I mean, AI tools are good, but innovation is much, much simpler and much less complicated as we believe.
Very, very beautifully said, Mukesh. I think resonates with most of us, because we are almost out of time. Any closing comments from you, ma'am?
I think let's work to creating more brands so that there is more brand love. Yeah, there's no life without love, right? So that goes for brands as well. Yeah. That's a soft one.
Thank you. From you,
And
Mukesh.
one comment which I'll make, maybe we started with the analogy of human love, maybe let's end with the same analogy. One thing which is different from an interpersonal love between a brand love is that it's not unconditional. It is conditional. If a brand is not able to add value to the consumer's life or is not able to change or generate that brand experience, there would be no brand love. So humans are maybe more unconditional, but a brand or consumer love has to be a value add there. Right?
Awesome. Beautiful ending to a beautiful session. Thank you, Ms. Nair. Thank you, Mr. Guraya. Really enjoyed the session and a lot of wonderful insights. Thank you so much.